Hi everyone, I'm back with another edition of the American Chess Magazine puzzle calendar. Let's get into the puzzles. This is the puzzle for May 1st. It was composed by Idon Anderson in the year 1941. Again, all the puzzles in this series are white to move, mate in 2. If you want to try to solve this puzzle for yourself, then go ahead and pause the video here. For me, this puzzle had a difficulty rating of 5 out of 10 and a satisfaction rating of 4 out of 5. Here, the sad thing is that a lot of white looks like they have a lot of tries to give checkmate, but none of them work. Queen e3, the knight's guarding this square, and there's king takes d5. e3, again, the knight is guarding this square. Other options include maybe trying to support queen to d5 mate, but then the king can run to e3. So all in all, it looks like white doesn't have much. But then you realize that one of the key attackers for white is actually this king. It controls this c5 and this c3 escape square. So then I thought, well, why not try to make queen e4 checkmate work? Unfortunately, the simplest move, e takes d3, fails to king takes d3, and black can run to many squares. Another try was knight to f6, so now if the bishop moves, then white has queen to e4. But the problem is that black doesn't have to move the bishop this way. They can move it along this diagonal, or they can just move their knight, and white doesn't have anything. So the path of trying to give mate on e4 didn't work. Then I thought, well, why not try using my knight to give checkmate? The easiest square for white's knight to give check from is b5 or c6. Knight to e7 trying to play knight to c6 does not work, unfortunately, because here black can play bishop to e4, and if queen takes c4, the king simply runs this way. Knight to c6, then black takes back, and here white doesn't have any way to give mate. So then that leaves the b5 square. Knight to c7 just seems kind of offside, like this knight isn't really controlling much. And the problem here is that black again plays bishop to e4, and white doesn't have anything. So therefore, white plays knight to c3, preventing bishop to e4 because the queen takes. And knight to b5 is actually impossible to stop. All of black's moves have a different refutation, which I find very interesting. If knight to b2, knight to d2, knight to a3, knight to a5, or knight to b6, any of these 5 moves, then white has e3 checkmate, because the knight is no longer guarding the e3 square. If knight to d6, e3 is still checkmate. So actually these 6 squares. But then these two are slightly different. Knight to e3, obviously white doesn't have e3 checkmate anymore, so they play queen to f6 mate. And if knight to e5, e3 again is no longer possible, so white plays queen to b6 checkmate. This is the puzzle for May 2nd. It was composed by Kazimierz Grabowski in the year 1920. Again, if you want to solve this puzzle for yourself, go ahead and pause the video here. For me, this puzzle had a difficulty rating of 3 out of 10 and a satisfaction rating of 5 out of 5. Here, I saw queen e5 check doesn't work because of king takes f3. So I'm like, oh, simple, just guard the rook, right? But the problem is that black has king to d5. This very annoying move guarantees that black will be able to run away. So I'm like, I didn't give up. I'm like, okay, let's try something different. Rook to g3, moving the rook out of danger, still threatening queen to e5. But again, black has king d5, this very annoying key defense, and the king runs away yet again. So here was the dilemma of the position. The rook is hanging and the d5 square is a convenient square for black to run away to. It looks like it's impossible for white to guard both of these at once. But then the solution struck me. It's like, oh, the only way to guard both of these squares at once is to play queen to a8. Now if king takes f3, rook to b3 is mate. Amazingly, black is in zigzag here. If king to d5, rook b6 guards the knight, preventing the king from running anywhere. If bishop to d5, then white has knight g5 checkmate, guarding the rook so that black's king can't take it. And finally, if pawn to d3, black's last legal move, then here white has the amazing rook to b4 checkmate, pinning the bishop and preventing it from blocking the mate. This is the puzzle for today, May 3rd. It was composed by Alfred Challenger in the year 1900. Again, if you want to solve this puzzle for yourself, go ahead and pause the video here. For me, this puzzle had a difficulty rating of 4 out of 10 and a satisfaction rating of 5 out of 5. Here, the problem is that no matter what white plays, black always has an escape square, mainly these 3 light squares. Knight to e7 fails to king to e6. Bishop takes e4 also fails to king to e6. And what's important to realize is that white giving a check directly isn't going to achieve their goals. So you have to look at it from black's perspective and see what they would play if it was their turn. King to c6 fails to knight to e7 because, again, this queen is pinned to the king. If black instead played king to e6, then white has queen takes e4. If black takes the bishop, then there's knight to f6 mate. And if black moves the queen anywhere else, then white can simply take the queen with mate. So black also has d3, but then queen takes e4. And finally c6, where white would have queen a2. I think this is the hardest mate to see out of all of them. Then you realize that if it was black's turn, then they would be losing no matter what they played. So you really have to find a way to pass the move. G7 was the first move I thought of. The pawn looks kind of useless here. What's it doing? But after king to e6, unfortunately, the pawn was very useful. It was guarding this f7 square, so now it's not mate in 2. So instead, white has to probably move the king, right? Because this rook is useful guarding the b-file escape squares, and if it moves off, then black has c4. And after rook b5, black blocks with the other c pawn and plays c5, and white doesn't have mate in 2. So the most useless piece here, the piece that you want to move in order to pass the turn to black, is the king. King to h3 or king to h2 both fail to queen takes h1 check, and white can't counter with mate. So the correct answer is king to f2. Now queen takes h1 isn't check, so knight to f6. Oh, this is not mate actually because black has king to c6. White should play knight e7, and this is mate. If queen to any of these two squares, again white takes. If d3, then queen takes e4. If c6, queen a2, this is the hardest one, in my opinion. If king to e6, then queen takes e4. And no matter what black plays, white will be giving mate in 2. So those are the puzzles for this half week. I feel like this half week there were a lot more puzzles with like, oh, you see the escape squares and it's very hard to cover them. So you have to find a way to cover them while also maintaining control of your current ones. Definitely some interesting puzzles. As always, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. And that's all for today. Bye.